Oh boy. I had this fleeting desire right after it happened to talk about this Moscow terrorist attack. But fleeting as it was, it went away and then it came back. Well, I guess I am talking about it, but mostly I'm going to talk about David Patrick Harry over here talking about it. But if I am to contribute something just from me about this attack, I think it's tragic, insane, incoherent. Clearly, I'm not at a loss for words, but maybe can't find the right one to describe what the fuck is happening here, right? So you got Russia mourning the deaths of I don't know, 150 or so innocent people who died in this attack, right? But what will come of this, and I've already seen Russians giving interviews and supporting this, what will come of this is more Russians getting sent to their deaths in Ukraine, right? Killing innocent people who had nothing to do with this attack. If the goal, in case you didn't get what I'm saying, is to, well, maybe that's not the goal. It would seem that it's it's a bad thing, right? Let's just make it simple. For innocent Russians to die, right? It's something that's tragic and seemingly we don't want to see happen. But if that's the case, why are we sending more Russians to die? I mean, anywhere between 2 to 10 times as many Russians die daily in Ukraine as they did in this one attack. But maybe we're not really bemoaning the death of these people, but we're Russians are glad to celebrate martyrs. This is some sick, twisted, perverted way of building, I don't know, a national myth, identity. It's pretty fucked up, right? Again, if we really care about Russians dying and we don't want to see it, then why the fuck are we sending them to die? And why are we seemingly happy about that? Maybe it's not incoherent. Maybe it's just downright fucking evil. I'll go with the latter.
So, all right. Okay, so to open up today's topic, we're talking about the Russian terrorist attack. What do we know? We know that.
You don't say. A lot of conspiracy theories about this, right? I don't know. I believe the official story. It was, you know, ISIS, some kind of ISIS. Yeah, most likely, probably. That seems to make sense to me. But man, who benefits, right? Definitely not Ukrainians. And because I mean, they're killing many more Russians every day, and those are Russians that are actually trying to do them harm. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying Putin did it or anything had anything to do with that, but can we be sure?
That it happened at the Crocus City Hall. This is a theater, and a band known as Picnic was getting ready to perform, of which there's going to be thousands of people present. I believe it was like 6,000 Russians were going to be present for this concert. And these unknown terrorists who ISIS has claimed, although, again, I have my own speculation. So, who is behind?
Why should we care? Speculations. What evidence do you have? So this is the Church of Eternal Logos channel, right? The Church of Everlasting, Never Ending, logical, rational discourse, something like that.
Behind the Russian terrorist attack? Well, ISIS has
Who's behind the Russian terrorist attack? All right.
claimed ownership. However, who is ISIS? And my argument is that, and I'll provide some details here, that the CIA, the intelligence agencies, we know due to Julian Assange's leaks in 2016 that the CIA actually created the ISIS. And so let me just show you that real quick so you guys get what it is that I'm talking about. So here's an article from Inquisitor in 2016, November 30th. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks new cables bombshell, ISIS created by the CIA. And so they released the Carter Cables 3, and it highlights that Julian Assange explained that the year 1979 marked a pivotal moment in world history and that it was a wild year politically and in all other ways, and numerous countries saw assassinations, revolt, coups, bombings, wars of liberation, and political kidnappings. Aha. A new WikiLeaks diplomatic cables that Julian Assange and his organization have released make riveting reading and describe how the now Islamist terrorism and ISIS originally began through a project between the government of Saudi Arabia and the CIA when they created.
Speaking of Julian Assange's and Edward Snowden's, where are the Russian counterparts to those guys, right? The people exposing the Russian intelligence community and the things that they're doing. Where are those guys?
Created the Mujahideen force in order to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, as the United States then perceived the Soviet.
Geopolitics is a dirty game. Sometimes you sponsor bad guys to do your bidding because, well, I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying this is the reality of geopolitics. A game that USSR and now Russia, one and the same, really. Uh, a dirty game that they're very much engaged in themselves, right? Supporting terrorist groups all over the world, all kinds of terrorist groups all over the world, right? It's just this is what these empires do, right? But just because they create some kind of an organization, that doesn't mean, or help fund it, help it get off the ground, that doesn't mean that they have full control of it, right? And once it spirals out of control and creates other branches, talking about ISIS now, right? Like the branch responsible for not exactly ISIS, but like a little subsidiary, I guess you would say, that claim responsibility for this attack in Moscow. You know, how much are they still connected to the CIA, right? And where's the evidence? Yeah, CIA had something to do with the creation of ISIS, the OG ISIS, right? But are they in control of this offshoot still? He seems to imply that they are. Where's the evidence?
Soviet Union to be their biggest threat. So, what happened? Well, here is a little bit of a BBC overview.
Did he just inadvertently admit that Russia and USSR are the same thing?
Which again, you can't count what any of the Western media has been saying. Zelensky has already blamed the attack on Putin, which is a bit ridiculous, but on brand for Zelensky. On brand for Zelensky for sure. And
Why is that ridiculous?
so,
Putin's been implicated in, well, a couple of terrorist attacks, right? And the people, the Edward Snowdens and the Assanges that were leaking information, found themselves, whatever the hell happened to them, poisoned, shot in the back of the head, right? I mean, are we going to talk about that too, right? And if not, why not?
as I mentioned, over 140 people have already perished. God rest their souls, memory be eternal. And I know our liturgy this past Sunday and all of our Lenten services, we've been praying since this attack for Russians and all faithful Orthodox Christians around the world that may have.
Does that include Ukrainians? This is this is when I this is a conversation I want to see happening, right? With all the ortho bros. You got Orthodox Christians on one side killing Orthodox Christians on the other side. Just Orthodox Christians is killing one another, right? By the hundreds every day. That's pretty fucked up, no? Kind of a black eye for the Orthodox Christians. Can we like have a conversation about this? Huh? Can we like call for peace maybe? I don't know. I'm just saying. Just a thought.
May have been affected in any way. Now, of the 4 attackers, we don't have all the attackers, and we don't know how many fully were there, at least from my understanding. But we have 4 of them, and all 4 were fleeing into Ukraine based on the advice of the Ukrainian government to find safe harbor there. So who is behind
Because I say so.
Ukraine? Well, NATO, the United States, Britain, Israel.
Israel's part of NATO? Since when? Much geopolitics though. Wow, I mean, this kind of sounds like reading the dictionary, right? Any definition in the dictionary, any word that's defined in the dictionary uses other words that are in the dictionary to define that word we're talking about. And if you just keep picking the words out of the subsequent definitions while at the same time defining them, right? I mean, you could connect anything to anything, really, right? This isn't, this would not hold up in any court of law. This is just conjecture, very spurious uh, connection. I mean, it's basic bitch shit, basically.
And I would suspect that those same intelligence agencies are the ones behind this attack, as the Kremlin has already highlighted.
I would suspect, I would speculate, in my opinion. Who gives a fuck, right? What can you prove? What evidence do you have? None. Zero.
The U.S. gave a notice that Moscow may experience a terrorist attack within the next 2 weeks, but gave very ambiguous details upon the attack. And
Bastards, right? Didn't give the exact time and place and how many people were gonna die. Oh, evil USA. Is this guy for real? Is he for real? Right? I mean, he just hates the US. Why is that? Who is he working for? I'll give you one guess. It ain't hard to tell.
And Putin has made mention that it sounds more like a sort of blackmail or
Daddy Putin said it, so you know it's true.
or a threat that the West issued at them, especially after these events have unfolded. So some people I saw online have been speculating that this was a false flag and nobody actually died and it was all fake. However, there's been videos and you can see the videos released, and unless all of that's fake, I have a difference of opinion. To me, it looks like it was a real tragic event. It was a real terrorist attack.
It was probably real. I'm on the side of, yeah, it was real.
And these men claim that they were recruited on Telegram, that they were looking for work.
You mean Telegram? They're recruited on Telegram. I mean, and that somehow points to CIA, not the GRU. So back in the day, the Russian Sugar Bridge, whatever his name is, the guy that created the Russian Facebook and Russian WhatsApp, right, was contacted by Russian intelligence, and they told him they wanted access to his apps, right? They wanted information. They wanted to be able to spy on people using VK and Telegram, right? So he said no, and he was exiled or had to run away, had to leave Russia, whatever happened. Um, and he was shut down, right? His, if I remember the details correctly, right, his um, both of his social media networks were shut down by the government, and he was banished, right, because he wouldn't basically snitch, wouldn't give Russian intelligence, the Russian CIA, access, the ability to spy on whoever was using those social media networks, right? And they got shut down, but then they went back online, huh? Right? They called him a terrorist, or he was supporting terrorists, blah blah blah. Russia, who doesn't negotiate with terrorists, right? Just shut them down and then just let them, carry on as if nothing had ever happened, right? Let them open up shop once again. So many people who could put two and two together speculated, and I agree with them, that GRU, Russian intelligence services, got what they wanted. They got access to Telegram, right? And now they run that shit. At least that's the theory. I mean, there's plenty of evidence, enough evidence for it, and it makes sense, right? They said, we'll let you operate if you give us what we want, right? That's what they said. They're operating. So what do you think happened? So saying that they were recruited on Telegram, right? I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that there it was a GRU operation, but that's their domain. That's not the domain of the CIA. It's their domain. It slipped through their fingers, or they had their fingers in it. Those are the two most likely options.
They're poor, they have no money, and they were willing to do these attacks for 10,000 USD.
Because that's how much CIA pays, right? Whenever CIA, starts ISIS or supports somebody, it's millions and billions of dollars, right? 10K? That sounds like rubles to me, mate.
They also, when asked how did they get the weapons, they said they were delivered to them by an unknown source. Interesting. So people
Why? How is that interesting? What does that mean?
from, at least a few of them we know, were from Tajikistan. They
Former Soviet Republic.
were labor migrants looking for work, poor, and were recruited through Telegram to commit these acts.
A Russian intelligence controlled website.
Had no access
Started by a Russian man, right?
to the equipment, and it was dropped off by an anonymous source. Interesting. And
Were were they supposed to post the transaction details with photos and who they are on social media networks or something? Like what's interesting about a clandestine operation being clandestine? What's so fucking interesting about that?
interesting. Hard to believe myself. And so this is just a little bit of an
It's very hard to believe yourself.
overview of it. Basically, everything that I've already explained to you is here. One of the interesting things that Putin has also mentioned is that
What did Daddy Putin say?
it's interesting that this Islamic terrorist attack happened during Ramadan. And right here we see where, and last week, President Vladimir Putin said recent provocative statements by a number of official Western structures about the possibility of terrorist attacks in Russia resemble outright blackmail and an intention to intimidate and destabilize our society. So Putin has given a response, and I just
So the U.S. warns Russia about an upcoming terrorist attack, and that means that's blackmail. So blackmail is, intel's a condition: do what we want or else, right? There was no do what we want. There was just else. This is what is likely to happen. Where's the blackmail, logos? You need at least two components. You don't even really have one. You got like 0.5. Where's the logos here?
Just want to play this so it can be part of our of our open panel and conversation today. So I got a few clips of Putin. We're going to listen to those to see whether you agree with him or
I like the bottom one. I like that one.
not. Who knows? But I think it's useful. We're going to be talking about the situation to at least hear what Putin has to say about it. So here's the first video I want to play to you in regards to the terrorist attacks. And then we have another one when he talks about who he believes benefits from it. And so here's the first one.
They were found and apprehended. They tried to escape. They were moving towards the border with Ukraine. And we have data that suggests that they were about to be moved towards the territory of Ukraine by those in Ukraine. Our military services.
We have evidence. You believe us, right? To this day, they have not provided any evidence to my knowledge. But if they did, you let me know. But, Daddy Putin said so. It must be true.
Our emergency services, everyone our investigators are working on.
Insofar as them moving towards the Russian border, I mean, where they got caught, I looked this up previously. They were basically caught at a crossroads of two major highways where they could have gone to Belarus or Ukraine. It wasn't clear just from the location where they got caught. It was basically equidistant between Belarus and Ukraine. Now, I'm willing to believe they will go to Ukraine. I mean, going to Belarus is like staying in Russia, and the closest, most logical place for them to go would be Ukraine, right? To get away. That's just right. That's where there's fewer Russian intelligence agents, police, military once they get past the front line, right? So it would just make sense that if you're Russia's foe, you go to Ukraine, right? That doesn't mean that Ukraine sponsored you. That's not enough evidence. And besides, where's the evidence that they were even going to Ukraine?
On finding out the orchestrators of this terrorist attack, those who gave them transportation, who created, who gave them weapons, etc. The investigative authorities will do everything to identify all details of this crime, but it's already evident that we face not just a cynically organized terrorist attack, but a mass killing of civilians. These perpetrators, these criminals, went specifically to kill people point blank, our people, our children, just like the Nazis that once.
Man, this clown is milking the shit out of this one, huh?
Killed our people.
So he's programming his audience, right? Nazis, Nazis, Nazis. That's become synonymous with Ukrainian, right? Just like the Nazis. Anybody that kills Russians is a Nazi, and anyone that's a Nazi is Ukrainian, right? You believe me.
During the war, they do the same. All the orchestrators, all those who are responsible for this crime will inevitably be found responsible, they will pay. We will identify everyone who stands behind these terrorists, and they will pay. This is a strike against Russia. We know what terrorist threat means, and we expect that other nations that share our pain will cooperate.
Of course, you know what a terrorist threat means. You sponsor all kinds of terrorist groups, all kinds of neo-Nazi terrorist groups operating in Ukraine, Africa, right? Hamas. You sponsor all kinds of terrorists. Of course, you know what it means, right?
With us, and we will stand united against this common enemy, international terrorism, no matter where it shows its ugly head. These terrorists have no nationality, and there's only one future for them: retribution.
This reminds me of post 9/11, right? Terrorists, 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 terrorize, scary, scary, scary. Are you scared yet?
And oblivion.
So we hear here again, Putin references Nazis, and if you remember when we did a review of Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin, again, Russian history, the Russians are quite...
You mean a monologue?
Rememorative of World War II and their battles against Nazi Germany, and we know that Putin was tying...
Yeah, they remember the second part of the World War. They've conveniently forgotten when they, signed a pact with the Nazis to divide Central Europe between them, right? They've conveniently forgot collaborating with the Nazis, right?
Ukraine to the Azov Battalion. People debate the extent of the Nazi problem in Ukraine, but he has noted that they do, in fact, still have remnants of World War II Nazis in Ukraine, and that basically what they're trying to do in the...
There's remnants of World War II Nazis in Ukraine. So there's 98-year-old men doing what? Not seeing? Okay.
Powers behind them are ultimately fascistic. And so this is where some people don't...
So are they Nazi or are they fascist? Which is it?
I've seen Westerners are very critical of his continual usage of Nazism. I agree. But for Russian history and the Russian people and Russian culture, it makes a lot of sense because the Soviet...
Because it's a fucking death cult.
Union fight against them is pivotal in their history. Now, here is a recent one also.
Why isn't there collaboration? Well, that was the pivot from the collaboration with the Nazis, right? The axis of evil, right? The true axis of evil. They bickered. They disagreed, right? Somebody got a little bit too greedy. So they went after each other. But that's what leftists do, right? The left always consumes itself.
This is 2 minutes, and this is what people are noticing, that they believe he's actually talking about the U.S. deep state, the Obama leftovers. Many people speculate that the Biden administration is, in fact, Obama's third term. And so I want to play this for you guys as well.
So it's okay to speculate that the people who warned them about the attack coming, right? They're the ones who orchestrated it. That's okay to speculate. But to say that the people who ignored the warning, right? It's not okay to say that they were behind it. That makes sense. Logos?
So this is I believe this came today or yesterday. So let's play this.
Arises. Who is to benefit? This crime.
Putin, right? Mobilization. Do I even need to? Everybody knows what's up, right? Yeah. This will mobilize the Russians against Ukrainians, and that's where he's directing their anger, right? Even though Ukraine had likely nothing to do with this. Let's just assume it was only ISIS. Well, who benefits, right? Putin. Not Ukraine. Are you kidding me? Ukraine, who's begging for artillery shells from the West, right? They're just going to go kill 150 or so innocent Russians and lose whatever waning support of the Western world they already have, give them an excuse to say, we're not supporting these terrorists. Really? What does Ukraine gain from killing 150 or so innocent Russians inside of Russia? They're gonna flex their intelligence muscle, right, to take out these low value targets, people who they don't benefit anything from this. Ukraine, who is like short on ammunition, short on everything compared to Russia. The only strategy that makes sense for them insofar as hitting targets inside of Russia, anywhere really, but especially inside of Russia, it's going to be high value targets, logistics hubs, refineries, ammunition depots, airports. What do they gain from killing innocent people going to a concert? Nothing. They lose Western support. Doesn't make any fucking sense. Can we tell the truth? Is that too fucking hard? Who benefits? Which doesn't prove that he did it, but who benefits from this? Russia, obviously.
Crime can only be a link in a chain of attempts by those who are at war with our country since 2014.
What happened in 2014? The coup in Ukraine.
Russia invaded Crimea. There was no coup in Ukraine. The motherfucker killed a whole bunch of Ukrainians and got the fuck out of Dodge. There was no coup. He ran off after committing a whole bunch of crimes.
Again, under Nuland, under the Obama regime. So clearly he's making insinuation that something happened in 2014 in which there has been a sort
He invaded Crimea.
of underground war, if you will. Like, as many people haven't been acknowledging of this until the invasion in Ukraine, but anybody who's familiar with the situation knows that NATO's been moving their border and really
Call it a special military operation or that fucking check is gonna bounce, homie.
trying to incite Russia into a conflict, of which many people believe that this terrorist attack is a deliberate attempt to get them to react incredibly violently towards Ukraine or potentially whoever is behind it to then issue a legitimate war against Russia.
Oh, so this is the latest theory. Do you want to provoke Russia to do something drastic, right? Like what? Invade Ukraine? Bomb their civilian infrastructure? Their electrical grid? Like that? Rape and murder a whole bunch of innocent people in a whole bunch of different places? Bomb a railway station? A couple more hospitals? Like, what can Russia do that it hasn't already done? Russia has done to Ukraine everything that is in their power. Their resources are limited. What else could Russia do? Well, they could drop a nuke, I guess. So the West, who's been very, very slowly doling out just enough support to Ukraine to basically knock out the Russian army's teeth, yeah, without Ukraine completely destroying them, right? Doling out just enough aid for Ukraine to not lose, right? Just to keep this conflict going. Somehow the West wants an escalation when it seems like Putin's nuclear threats have been a deterrent. I'm not sure that's exactly the case, but the West has definitely, whatever caused the West to be deterred, it's certainly that. It's been avoiding escalation. All these Western policies up until this point have been very, very careful not to escalate this conflict. But they're just looking for an excuse, right? Just like they were going to invade Russia, so Russia had to invade Ukraine so they wouldn't get invaded by NATO, who's was deemed brain dead by, was it Trump? Quite a few years ago already. NATO that's not ready for an all-out conflict with Russia, as we find out, because their military-industrial complex is in fucking shambles, and U.S. isn't too sure if it's going to support them or pull out, right? Seeing as it has that huge problem in the fucking Pacific to deal with. The U.S. wants to escalate an all-out war with Russia somehow. Oh, this is just really. If that were the case, then why did they give? Why did they give Ukrainians 30 Abrams tanks and not 500 out of their 2,000 plus fleet of fucking Abrams tanks just sitting there collecting rust, costing a whole bunch of fucking money to maintain? If they wanted an escalation, why are the F-16s taking so fucking long to get there? And they got much better planes than those. I've been talking about F-16s for 2 years. Are they in combat yet? But the West wants to escalate. Fuck out of here.
The Nazis, the Kiev regime, who never stopped at any means using any kinds of inhuman tactics to achieve their goals, especially now when their so-called counteroffensive has failed, as recognized by everyone. And the Russian armed forces possessed the initiative along the entire front line, and no attempts to stabilize the situation for the Ukrainian side have been successful. This has led to their attempts to penetrate our borders and their shellings of Russian civilian infrastructure, including energy infrastructure, their attempts to make strikes at the Crimean Bridge, the Crimean Peninsula. These steps.
I don't know what the exact definition of civilian infrastructure is in war, but I believe just because, you know, the civilians also use the power grid or a bridge or whatever, I think so long as that bridge is used for military purposes or, a power station, like Belgorod is um, one of those, civilian cities that keeps getting attacked by Ukraine because it's right on the border, right? That's a very important logistical supply hub for the Russian army, right? So I don't know what the rules of war are exactly, but I think any piece of infrastructure that's used for the war effort is no longer considered civilian infrastructure, right? So the Kerch Bridge, yeah, civilians use it, but so does the Russian army. It's a major supply route. Okay, so calling that civilian infrastructure, or a hospital in Belgorod where I, I think that's a war crime, no matter who's in the hospital. But I mean, is it really civilian infrastructure if there's a whole bunch of Russian soldiers and, you know, getting ready to get sent to the front after they get their little wounds healed or whatever? I don't know. Long story short, it's Putin spewing propaganda, basically. I'm not saying everything he says is a lie, but, these are half truths.
Make up a logical sequence of terrorist attacks and attempts to intimidate the Russian society and sow discord. At the same time, to show their own population that the Kiev regime is still strong, that the only thing people need is to obey the orders that come from Washington, fight to the last Ukrainian, and to adopt new orders on mobilization, create youth brigades like Hitler used to have.
I'm sorry, but the average Russian is a soulless NPC, man. Who buys this shit, right? The the level of internal Russian propaganda is so basic, bitch. It's so fucking stupid. But that's all it needs to be, right? Because the rank and file Russian that doesn't really have access to the internet, and if they do, it's, you know, Russian social media networks, basically. It just doesn't know shit about shit, basically. And it's, if this is all it takes to fucking convince them, then they can't be very well informed.
And the money that are being provided for these purposes will certainly be appropriated by the higher-ups, like has happened in Ukraine. And right.
Okay, so again, for who's behind it, in my personal opinion, and we're getting ready to bring on Jose and Ivan to discuss their perspectives on this, which I'm sure will be very insightful. I believe it's the Western intelligence agencies. I believe it's MI6, it's Mossad, it's the CIA, and people think, well,
Chicago Police Department, LAPD, right? This is like a joint operation by MI6, Mossad, and the CIA. Okay, where's the evidence for any of this? This would be like one of the most complex, involving, you know, most intelligence, international intelligence organizations operation to kill 150, couple of hundred Russians. And for what reason? So that the death cult could send more people to die? This doesn't make any fucking sense.
well, why would the Western intelligence agencies have anything to do with radical Islam? Well, in case you've been living under a rock for the last 2 decades, we know for a fact, like the IDF actually arms the same people that they say they're against, along with the CIA. We know.
So now it's the IDF. Like, make up your mind. Who is it? See, it's the CIA, you know, IDF, MI6, Mossad, LAPD, the Jews. Just gotta throw the Jews in there, right? The Jews did it.
Know that the CIA had a significant hand in building the jihadists. Here's Brzezinski literally talking about. We're not going to go through.
Yeah, we know
that because, again, the point is the open panel. But I'll share this link with you guys if you want to read about the CIA, Julian Assange leak in 2016. There's the link there. If you want this little general, again, it's the BBC, so take it for what it's worth. But it'll just,
again, the Russian propaganda is so strong in the United States. Like, everybody knows MI6, Mossad, CIA, obviously FBI, blah blah blah. But like, no one's ever heard of the GRU. Like, what the fuck is that? Yeah, okay, KGB, but they don't even know that FSB is basically KGB, and there's still KGB in Belarus, right? KGB runs the Russian Orthodox Church, right? Like, they don't know this. GRU, what the fuck is that, right?
just a general overview to get a mainstream narrative opinion on what's happening. And then here's an article literally by the Times of Israel talking about how the IDF armed the rebels in Syria. And then I just wanted to highlight, if you weren't familiar with Timber.
IDF armed the rebels in Syria, so they had their fingers in some Tajiks killing a whole bunch of people in Russia, right? You make that make sense.
Sycamore was a classified weapons supply by the CIA to radical Islamic organizations under Barack Obama. So is this crazy? No, we actually know about it. Now, I'm not telling you to trust Wikipedia, of course, but interestingly enough, that it was requested.
Okay, so why are you posting a Wikipedia article?
By Prime Minister Netanyahu and the King of Jordan that the U.S. and the CIA supply weapons to these radical Islamic rebel groups. Very interesting. And here's ISIS may have obtained anti-tank missiles from the CIA. No surprise there either. Now, I want to bring on our guest before I get into anything else. I did have a video.
Just because ISIS may have gotten some weapons from the CIA That doesn't mean CIA was behind what happened in Moscow, right? So on the one hand, he doesn't think it was ISIS, or he does think it was ISIS. It was the Ukrainians. It was ISIS. It's just everyone's just against poor innocent little Russia, right? Biggest fucking country in the world with their intelligence operatives working all over the fucking world. Some of the biggest troll farms on the internet, right? Huge intelligence network, global intelligence network, right? Poor little Russia, right? Mm-hmm.
Video right here, and this was, we'll just play a quick few minutes. This is Vladimir Solovyov, and he is a major broadcaster in Russia. And I just want to play this so you get a sense of what is the Russian narrative and the Russian perspective on this topic.
So he's a Kremlin stooge. The guy's a fucking clown. That's the guy that said that, a Russian supersonic penis missile killed 400 NATO generals, right? Like, who the fuck believes this dumb shit? 400 NATO generals? Can we have like 5 names? Because, it hit a NATO bunker and killed all these generals. That's the fucking guy that said that Berliners were cutting down trees in their city parks just to keep warm because Daddy Putin cut off their gas in the winter, right? That's that same fucking guy. What other bullshit did he spew? Like, his shows are all over YouTube, translated into English. Go watch how they conduct themselves, the type of shit that they say. It's a fucking clown show. But Vlad over here is somehow credible.
Topic. And then I want to bring Jose and Ivan and get into an open panel discussion. So here is Vladimir talking about his opinion, the sort of Russian populist opinion of what just occurred.
Thank you for joining us. I know it's very late in Russia. You've got the floor, sir.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to all Americans that send very warm words to Russians who do suffer from one of the worst terrorist attacks in the history of our country. We can compare with 9/11. During 9/11, there were...
There it is. There it is, right? Alex Jones was on the forefront of 9/11, calling it an inside job. They're basically telling you what it is. But we're just going to, right, the more conspiratorial ones of us, we're just going to reject everything we know, everything we've said in the past, everything we believe to happen, right? And what? This guy is like literally telling you what's up on Alex Jones, right? Not literally, but he might as well be saying that this was an inside job, right? I mean, come on.
Almost 5,000 people that were killed. This terrorist attack was aiming to kill 6,000.
If nothing else, this guy is well trained on how to manipulate audiences, right? Pull on them heartstrings.
1,200 people that attended the concert. So far, more than 140 people died, but unfortunately, the amount of deaths will only increase. A lot of
All this sighing, this heavy heart. Man, this guy doesn't give a fuck about those people.
people injured. So what happened? I can show you actually on the screen. We made a little presentation of how it's all happened. If my guys will get my computer on. Guys, can you show the picture? Yes, please. So that's what happened. A group of 4 people that were recruited through Telegram for not a huge amount of money, 1 million ruble each. They entered facility.
Oh yeah, they got paid in rubles by the CIA.
It took them about 10 minutes to get straight into the concert hall. On the way, they killed a lot of people. Then they throw cocktail Molotov grenades. They started fire and immediately left the building. Then they got on the car that were waiting for them and tried to move toward borderline with Ukraine, where they were waited by Ukrainian special forces that were planning to help
No evidence, right? Just because I say so.
them to get out through Russian-Ukrainian border. But they were stopped by Russian police and special services, and through a couple of hours of search, hide-and-seek operation, we managed to get them all. They're all alive. They're talking. They have no idea that they were ISIS, as they were told by United States and British and other officials. No, they were not ISIS fighters. They didn't want to die for whatever they believe in, like Islam.
It's a well-known fact, established in the worldwide intelligence community, psychologists, whatever the fuck have you, that confessions from tortured prisoners are not reliable.
They want
This man right here. So the reason you're seeing all that blood is one of them. They actually cut his ear off. I see his ear there, so that may or may not have been this gentleman right here. But
Orthodox Christians cut his ear off, right? What was the term that he used? All the faithful Orthodox Christians, or the good ones, the right ones. Those guys. Okay.
you can literally watch videos when they captured these four guys, of which this is what they look like. I have a photo of them. So you can see this was when their appearance in court yesterday. The four right here, you can see they all have black eyes.
Why is that funny? Or is it just an uncomfortable laughter? Right? Those guys got beat the fuck out of. They'll say whatever the fuck you want them to say. Who gives a shit what they have to say when they look like that? Come on.
They all got beat up. They got interrogated, and Russia believes they know a lot more about what occurred, especially more so than any Western
Russia knows what they know. They just got to beat it out of them, right? Come on, man. This is such low tier, man.
media is telling us. That's why I wanted to play this little video real quick, and I'll finish it. But if you want to look into, I'm not going to show any of the actual footage. You can go on X and you can find all that stuff. It's very easy to find.
They wanted to live and to spend money. Not a lot of money. Million rubles, it's like 10,000 bucks. So for 10,000 bucks, they killed an enormous amount of people. They were recruited through Telegram. That's a well-known way of
You want to look into, I'm not going to show any of the actual footage. You can go on.
We're not able to come up with this rather sophisticated plan because the building itself is not an easy one. So you have to know where to go and what to do. Not able to come up with this rather sophisticated by Ukrainian special forces, and there were a couple of terrorist attacks inside Russia done this way. Money, Telegram, they're finding special guys, give them exact instructions. It's obvious that those guys were not able to come up with this rather sophisticated plan because the building itself is not an easy one. So you have to know where to go and what.
So they got paid in Russian currency. They got contacted, recruited from a Russian social media network. They got paid Russian amounts of money, which obviously points to CIA, Mossad, LAPD, and so on and so forth, right? Okay. And they had intimate knowledge of the place they were attacking, right? Okay.
What to do. They knew exactly what's the game plan is, and they played by this game. But our special forces were one step faster and better. Then we
Huh? How so? Those words were very, very hard to swallow, right? I mean, they allowed, well, they weren't able to stop them, were they?
saw this operation of cover-up operation, stating that no, that is not Ukrainian. Definitely, it's not Ukrainian. It's a lie. Because right now, on the other side of the Russian-Ukrainian border, we saw an enormous activity of Ukrainian special forces that worked hand in hand with Islamic terrorist organizations. So we know that they're fighting hand in hand. Who's behind them?
Yeah, and our Russian Kinzhal missile killed 400 NATO generals, too. You believe me, right?
We know for sure, thanks to New York Times article, that they were trained by CIA and other special agencies of the United States. That's why when Victoria Nuland a couple of months ago stated that President Putin will get a lot of nasty surprises on the borderline. So now we
Moscow is not on the border, buddy.
see what's in her definition borderline is and what kind of nasty surprises she planned for our country. There's only
All the incursions into Belgorod and the surrounding area, right?
one leader of Western world who didn't express his feelings toward Russians and didn't send, the right words, who didn't mourn with us, who didn't support Russian people after this awful attack. This is Zelensky, this little drug addict personality managed to blame Russian President Putin for this attack. The only person in the world who did that. Even President
So because he blamed Putin, that means he did it?
Biden, although he hated and he hates Putin, didn't come up with this. But Zelensky could not find even one word toward Russian citizens. And
Why would he? Like, why would he? You're what? He didn't express condolences to the innocent Russians killed by some Islamic terrorists inside of Russia, while Russia is murdering a whole bunch of innocent Ukrainians on the daily. What? But this is big brain takes from Russian propagandists.
and actually, as we talk right now, there's a huge attack on Russian city Belgrade. And every time they hit Belgrade, and it has nothing to do with military.
So that's on the border. Moscow is what, like 500 kilometers from the border? But we're just gonna connect the two as if they were right next to each other.
Infrastructure. I've been there yesterday. They hit hospitals and they hit huge apartment houses. And they hit them with NATO weaponry, artillery provided by Czech Republic. And as of now, they attack Crimea and Sevastopol. That's why actually I'm really surprised, Alex. Why do all those NATO guys trying to show their empathy to Russian people when they love when someone is killing us? They supply Ukrainian Nazis with all weapons in the world. Even French little guy is willing to send his.
So he's mad because Zelensky doesn't show empathy, and then he's mad because US shows empathy. You can't make this guy fucking happy.
Troops to fight Russians. So why are they right now trying to show that they're humans and they have the human-like feelings, saying, "Oh, we're so sorry. Oh, poor Russian people were with you." A few months ago, they applauded to terrorist attacks in St. Pete when one of prominent Russian journalists was killed, and a lot of people who attended this meeting with him were wounded. Every time when there's a terrorist attack done by the Ukrainians.
Wait a minute. Killing Russian military officials, personnel, soldiers? in response to Russia invading Ukraine is a terrorist attack? This is big brain takes from Vlad over here on Alex Jones.
West applauded, stating that Ukraine can do whatever they want to fight ugly Russia. But as of now,
so U.S. has limited the range of HIMARS, has prohibited Ukraine from using NATO weapons to strike inside of Russia, right? But none of that matters because Vlad knows everything.
That behind this attack, not just Ukrainian special forces, but the real masters, CIA and British special op.
That's right, and we saw
masters, right? That's high praise for American intelligence community carrying out a sophisticated operation inside of Russia, right? He seems impressed by their ability.
Obama.
And so we'll stop it there. But to conclude, who I believe is behind it, again, following this general remark, I believe it is Western intelligence. I believe this is a way to
Who gives a shit what you believe? What evidence do you have?
try to evoke the Russian.
And why the fuck are you squirming so much and swallowing your fucking words? Why are you so uncomfortable spewing this bullshit?
Russian bear into a larger conflict so that they can legitimate a further war and escalation of things against Russia. So the CIA, MI6, Mossad, thinking, them coming out and
The pure unadulterated bullshit that comes out of this guy it's comical, man.
stating it's behind ISIS is taking credit for it within the people once they're captured have no affiliation with ISIS. I think we can put the dots together. So that's my general take. Now with that,
what dots? This fucking guy.
being said, let's bring on our brothers on the screen. I think Jose just stepped away for a second. So Ivan would because he probably knows much more than me.
Yeah, so there, as far as in terms of which group specifically carried it out, there's two sets of rumors that I've heard, at least in my circles. One is this is why Victoria Nuland was essentially resigned or was forced to resign. So that's the rumor that suggests that it's more so coming from the American side of the equation. The other, which comes from...
Hold on. Let me clarify there. So she was forced to resign. Why? So she can sort of work, more black ops, and that way she's not tied with the State Department while she does this stuff, or what?
So according to that rumor, the DC or the Beltway did not want to escalate things that far.
Rumor from my sources.
With Russia, and she had already set stuff in motion, and so that's why she was pushed to resign.
I see.
So that's the rumor on one side. The rumor from sources on the other side.
Rumor that Victoria Nuland is doing something, right? Okay, what the fuck does that have to do with ISIS hitting Moscow? Where's the connection?
Of the world over in the old world suggests that what do you call it? That MI6 is more so to blame. But yeah, so those are the two rumors that I've heard concerning this, and we'll find out soon enough. But either way, no one's pointing to the false flag hypothesis, and no one is pointing to
no serious person, at least. I see people, the typical normies, Western normies on X, trying to lay that out.
Okay, so this fucking guy is gonna give us Alex Jones, right? As some kind of credible source. The same guy who basically made who he is on 9/11 and false flag inside job theories, which, hard to disagree with, right? I was with Alex on that back in the day. But now it's somehow a normie thing to do what Alex did that you think is so credible. Like, why are we dick sucking Russia so hard, right? Right? Why? With all the fucking rubles this guy is getting. Why else? Why else would he play himself like that?
Yeah. So the only question is this something that the West intended to do to escalate, or is this a case of this, what do you call it, ground level or stuff being set in motion by a certain undersecretary that went.
If U.S. wanted to escalate so much, then why would I'm not saying that there aren't some parties, right? The West isn't all that united. It's not some kind of fucking monolith. I'm not saying that there aren't some people, war hawks in the West, that want to escalate this and make money on, arms contracts or whatever. Sure. But to just say like the West wants to blah, 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 when the West has been basically neutering Ukraine to do just enough to deter Russians and bleed them out, clearly not wanting to escalate this any more than it needs to be, to claim that they somehow just want to escalate. Okay. Where's your evidence for this? That's counter to what's actually been happening so far.
Went beyond what what the Beltway was actually wanting. So that's the only thing that's up for debate, really.
And where's your opinion lie? Because you mentioned British, because we know for a fact that British Special Forces is the personal security of Zelensky right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I think Britain wants to escalate to World War III, or at least the leadership there, and the U.S. is amazingly, at least some portion of the U.S. government is trying to apply the brakes. That's my.
Britain wants London nuked, according to this guy. Okay, cool story, bro.
Russian.
Okay.
Is that an Orthodox beard? Is it? Looks like one.
Okay.
Russian Orthodox beard.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think that I kind of agree with everything that was said. I don't know which part of the West is like spearheading this, if it's the British or if it's the Americans. My guess would be that it would be like a part of the deep state in the US, but I'm not sure because I don't know the specifics of the situation and what the power players are wanting to do over there. But this is obviously not a false flag, and this is
why
probably not an ISIS kind of deal, because these people weren't trained. They didn't seem to be like trained. They were expendable, and I think that part of
it's not ISIS because they're expendable. You mean like suicide bombers expendable?
The narrative has to be questioned as well, because like the money they said that they were paid was so little, and yet they executed the plan. I wouldn't say perfectly, but to a great degree of let's say proficiency, because like these people didn't have weapons training. How did they get like to do such havoc without the weapons training? And why were they what
Because they were shooting a whole bunch of fucking unarmed people.
why were they expected by Ukrainian forces? Like, if that's solid information, then we know that there are too many players here. And like, I want to apply Occam's razor, and I'd say that the Ukrainians don't have the resources or the intel to.
So after you said a whole bunch of shit that doesn't make any sense, like it doesn't really, one thing didn't follow another, you're gonna apply Occam's razor, right? And just trim off all the fat. Okay, let's hear it.
To do it by themselves, but I don't know if I don't know how many are involved in this. So
yeah, he doesn't know. Okay, got it. Next.
Right. Well, I saw today that a father and son were arrested in affiliation with it in Russia. So it sounds like they're uncovering more. But I think in regards to this situation, one
Okay, well that's a nothing burger.
of the more interesting questions to speculate upon is the geopolitical situation that's going to follow. And one of the things that I suspect, I'm curious of your guys' opinions, is I think that outside.
Wait, so geopolitics are somehow going to change after this? Huh? What is he saying? Like geography is going to change? And how geography influences politics, power dynamics between state agents? That's geopolitics is somehow going to change because of this. What is he saying? I don't think he knows what geopolitics is.
Outside the Western world, this is actually going to gain more sympathy for Russia and actually create more allies for Russia. We've already seen with BRICS, as we've talked about in previous open panels, and
so Russia benefits.
And what's happening and unfolding with Ukraine, that Russia is getting stronger. They're forming more allyships with various nation states. And I suspect...
Yeah. Communist China, Communist North Korea, authoritarian Iran. Yeah. All the good guys, right? This is that's your crew, really? This is your crew, and you're happy about this? You happy to be part of this crew? Really? I think you done fucked up, man.
That this is actually only going to strengthen those bonds with the countries that show support for them, as Putin said in the first video that I showed. While if it does come to light that the West was behind it, I think they're going to lose more support from the international community, which, I mean, they really have. It's outside of brute force through money or military threat. I mean, it's really Israel, the United States, and NATO that is, it feels like, and I'm curious of your guys' opinion, is against the rest of the world at this point.
The thing is, what they're doing is objective suicide. Because the fact is, they want to pivot to fight China. And that's the whole point of deploying troops to Taiwan recently, which is a gross violation of everything the United States has agreed to, over the past 50.
So, one of the premises that's just assumed is that U.S. did it. Where's your fucking evidence? How are we gonna start drawing conclusions from the premise you can't even substantiate with anything except rumors of something completely unrelated to what happened, right? Rumor about Victoria Nuland being demoted or moved into black ops, right? That means that CIA had something to do. None of this makes any fucking sense. But let me just grant you all this fucking bullshit. Because, rah, rah, Russia.
50 years since things warmed up with China. So that, and the scary thing about that is that at least the last time I checked, the Chinese, foreign ministry and their what's it called? I think it's called Global Times. Their English, the government's English, newspaper or state news. They've actually been silent on the issue of American troops being deployed in Taiwan, which is the most dangerous response that could come from China, because that means they are going to do something. So the worst, if one's trying to pivot to fight China after losing to Russia in a proxy war, on Russia's border, as well as losing a proxy war in Syria, and potentially, also losing a proxy war in Africa, and potentially losing a proxy war in the Middle East again if Israel decides to kick off things with Lebanon, or with Hezbollah in particular. Yeah, it's just absolutely insane. It's just sheer insanity from a diplomatic standpoint, and it's going to be that much harder. I mean, one, the U.S. has no hope. No, there is no road to victory.
None of this makes any sense. He's just prattling.
In fighting China, just like there is no road to victory in fighting Russia.
Right.
The U.S. has no industrial base. It doesn't even have the skills to rebuild this industrial base. To build, so to get to where Russia was in 2014, it was in 2014 when Russia really started kicking up overdrive in their industrial expansion for military purposes. Just to get to where Russia was in 2014, just to get the skills needed to have a skilled population to actually build the industry and that can be run in the United States is going to take 30 years. So it's what do you call it? My personal opinion is,
okay, so U.S. is incapable of fighting Russia right now. They don't have the industrial base, which is obviously proof that they want to escalate with Russia, right? Even though they can't do anything about it, they want to escalate None of this makes any fucking sense.
The U.S. government is effectively on autopilot. You have a lot of things that were set in motion, more than a decade, some things more than 2 decades ago, and there's no one actually steering the ship at this point.
Right.
And that's part of why deep state, as people refer to, which is essentially faceless bureaucrats. That's why they want to keep Joe Biden, because Joe Biden is the perfect president who has no power and no capacity to stop or do or influence anything. Right. So it just lets the bureaucrats go nuts, and they all run crazy with their pet programs and their pet projects, all of which were set in motion a long time ago, and that's what's leading to this crazy disaster.
All right, that's a pretty cool theory. Can we have some names of these bureaucrats and who these people are, what their agendas are, something to go on?
Yep.
So basically, Jose, let me get the idea across that. Basically, you think that the deep state is trying to, let's say, implement these plans because some corrupt oligarchs are gaining money from the transactions, but it actually doesn't help in any way to further American goals.
It's more like, okay, so it's more like the intelligent people are dead or gone, or dead or retired, or they've been canceled, and the people who are currently running things, they have no idea why they're doing what they're doing. Like that's essentially what is happening. Like the Titanic is going straight for the iceberg, and except that the people who control the wheel and the steering and the engines, none of them have any clue, and none of them even know how the machinery that they're operating operates.
Right. And I want to back that up because I have a friend, I know people are going to, very red-pilled, orthodox guy, so we'll just put it that, but he is a engineer for NASA.
So you know he's legit, right?
And he is now in the administrative department. He was talking about how incompetent these federal agencies are. To Jose's point, he said they can't do these things. They literally do not have the skill set anymore.
Yeah, so U.S. intelligence agencies, right, are so fucking incompetent that they could warn Russia about an impending terrorist attack that they're about to carry out, and Russia can't fucking do anything about it. That's how incompetent they are. They could literally warn Russia that we're going to terrorist attack you, and Russia can't do anything about it because the West is so incompetent. This is just this whole fucking stream. Well, up until this point, it's just pure like speculation, conjecture, no evidence, just sucking off Daddy Putin, right? And absolute incoherence. None of this makes any fucking sense. There's no evidence. Like, none of this coheres. It's all over the fucking place. This is just low-level propaganda. Maybe like a level above Vlad on Alex Jones, but that still doesn't say much. This is garbage. This is absolute garbage, right? But this is the Church of Eternal Logos, right? A guy who, when he's debating atheists and he's obviously representing Christianity, like knows logic, speaks logic. Things that he says are on point, logical. Like it's just, it makes sense. He is logos when it comes to that, right? But then when we shift over to geopolitics, whatever the fuck, all of a sudden it just becomes garbled garbage. None of it makes any sense. None of it coheres. None of it really follows. It's just like conjecture. There's no real deduction or induction. It's just like all these spurious associations and a whole bunch of bullshit. And it's all absolutely one-sided, right? Is this how Russian propaganda works in the United States, right? We give you nuggets of truth. We lay this groundwork, this foundation, and we appeal to God, right? To get into your heart, to gain your trust, so that we could push absolute nonsense and garbage. And you'll eat that shit up too, once we've gained your trust, right? Once we've proved ourselves logical, rational, credible, good people, right? God, really? Man, these motherfuckers all going to hell. Come on, man. I'm not retarded. That's all I gotta say, man. This is This is pathetic, man. This is pathetic. This is in my opinion, right? I don't have any proof. It's just, hey, if you're cool with what they did, then at the very least, my fucking opinion makes sense, right? This is essentially KGB. It's those tentacles I mentioned halfway through this fucking video, long ass video. It's those KGB FSB GRU tentacles. This is Russian influence in the United States, right? That is what it is. This is just one face of it. This is just one facet of it. And it's fucking low tier as fuck. But you got all these reasonable, rational logos, ortho bros in the comment section, right? Are they calling out these inconsistencies, all this incoherence, all this fucking nonsense, conjecture? These dudes letting their imagination run wild and just so completely and utterly one-sided? No. This is some powerful shit, man. This is some powerful shit. It's just my opinion, man. I think this is, I don't know, maybe some of these guys are useful idiots, right? They've just been duped. Fair enough. But I mean, some of them are Russian agents also. I don't know who's who, but come on, man. You can't on the one hand be completely logical, rational. You can't on the one hand be logos, right? And then on the other hand be the complete and utter opposite of that. And be so, and do this like unconsciously. I mean, you could do, insofar as DPH is concerned, right? You could do a whole body language analysis of this dude. He's full of shit, man. I'm just saying, the guy's full of shit. Anyway, yeah, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching if you made it all the way through this shit. What a bunch of sad sacks of fucking human excrement. Fuck all of you guys. Take care.